That knife whose grind line that I ruined, I decided to go with a full grind, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. And I just wanted to show you something that probably most skilled knife makers know, but it's something that I'm just discovering myself. When you're grinding, when you're rubbing out the grind lines, the original grind lines that you put on there making the bevel, you have to rub those out, or not. Somebody, some folks don't remove the grind lines. I just like to. It's a lot more work, but it makes the knife look a lot better. Okay, so when you do come off the belt grinder, you have grind lines that are horizontal to the blade, or actually vertical to the blade. And the way you get rid of those is you go the next grit up from what you ended on the grinder, uh, and in my case, the last grit on the grinder was 120, so I started, when I come off the grinder, I started with a 180, and you grind this way. And that way, you can see the lines that you're not getting that are going this way. Now, I'm up to 220, and I'm going this way, diagonally, with my sanding. Here's my sanding apparati. I just wanted to show you what it looks like and how you can, when you alternate the direction of sanding, you can see what you're missing. Let me see if I can get, okay, right here. You see those horizontal to the knife grind lines right there from the last grit, 180? Now, I'll know when I'm getting them out when they disappear with me sanding diagonally. And let me turn this over. I'll show you what the last grit looks like. That's 180. I'll get to that 220 on this side in a minute, and the same thing. I'll sand this way. But I just thought I'd show you a little tip that I'm sure every other knife maker comes to this epiphany, this realization that in order to see that you're making a difference, or to determine that you've got the previous grits sanding marks out, you have to sand in a different direction. And it's actually looking pretty good down this way. And I still got a ways to go, but hey, that's what I've come up with so far. Okay, I'm really happy with the way this knife is turning out. I got to work on I think they call this the ricasso. I'm going to call it the area between the knife, the Sharpie, and the Woody. I'm going to see if I can show you what I'm looking at as far as scratches. What do you think of my? Isn't that a pretty cool light? Can you see? Look right here. I still got a couple of. Hold on, let me focus. There we go. I still have. Okay, there's one. Minor scratches. And through trial and error, I have discovered that if you think you can just go ahead and move on to the next grit, you're wasted your time, because you will not get those scratches out with the next grit. You'll waste way more sandpaper. So, I got just, here, let me turn this light on, maybe that'll help. I got one or two right here, and one right down here. And other than that, it's looking good, looking good. So this is 220. What will I be moving up to next? 320 next. I actually got to do the other side of the blade too, but feeling good, looking good, and back to work. Man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. I am My hands are so wore out that I'm at 400. I have sanded 180, 220, 320. Now I'm at 400. And this is what it's looking like. I've started with the 400 this way. And the only reason this is taking me so long is because this is hardened steel. If I had done this in its pre-hardened state, it's a normal, state at 1095. I don't know what the hardness level is. I would be done by now, but since I screwed up, and I managed to save it, it's just worth all the work that it takes now to get this up to 600. I think I'm going to go to 600, maybe 800, and I may even put it on my buffer. So, and this is a Chuck Ward knife vise, and I gotta tell you, I don't know how I made knives without this. This thing is more handy. I haven't found anything that I need to do to blades that I couldn't do in this vise. It's very, very handy, and I can get you one of these knife makers for 140 bucks, shipped to your door with a tracking number. So if you want one, let me know. Chuck Ward, Knife Maker's Voice, 100 Knife Maker's Vice, the voice of knife makers. 140 bucks, shipped to your door. bctruck@gmail.com is my PayPal. You put 140 bucks on my PayPal with your address, and I'll get one shipped to you the next day. Okay, I'm going to call it a day. My wife isn't feeling so good, and she went inside early. So I have not done any more since I was talking about 400 grit. My hands are just hurting me too bad. So I stopped for a minute, and I put the handles together. They're going to be, they're going to have walnut inner liners, and this wood is called pink ivory. So I've got the handles glued up, and tomorrow they'll be ready to get shaping. And let's see if I can get this out of there without this. What do you think of that? What did that come out? Better than I expected, to be honest. It still irks me that one pin isn't like the other. One of these pins is not like the other. One of these pins just doesn't belong. Okay, I'll stop. But yeah, it's looking good. Tomorrow I'm going to come out and I just put the second coat on this, and I'll let it dry overnight, and tomorrow I'll buff it up real good with some 4-aught steel wool, quadruple-aught, and put the third and probably last coat, because this is looking so good. I think 3 coats is going to do it. We'll see, because I'll tell you when I stop, what I usually look for. Can you see the little tiny divots? That is grain structure. And the True Oil sinks down into the grain structure and leaves them little divots. And what I usually do is put True Oil on until the little tiny grain structure divots are at the same height as the rest of the wood. So I True Oil it, and then I buff it good with some steel wool. And anyway, we'll see. And then I can start on a sheath for that. And tomorrow I will bring this up to 400 and then to 600. And I do not have 800. I've looked. Let me get this in there real quick before I drop it. I don't want to drop it and get dust on it. even websites that sell sandpaper, they go from 600 to 1,000 or 600 to 12, and I do not know why nobody sells 800. But I do know that you can't skip that huge, you can't go from 600 to 1,000 without having to spend 3 or 4 times the amount of time and rubbing with 1,000 than if you just went from 6 to 800 then to 1,000. So I'm taking it to 600. I'm not going to put it on my buffer. This is going to be a using knife. And Pat, he deer hunts, and I am going to buff it up to 600, and that will be enough to keep stuff from staying in the pores. And when it starts getting a patina on it, if he wants, he can bring it over here and hit it with some 600, make it look brand new again. Alrighty, y'all, I'm going in. See you mañana.